So, one of the tools that I use when I am dealing with abusers or people with like an abuse template is I like to assume they're right to see how wrong they are. And the reason why this works is because if you're an abuser and you are oriented toward dominating other people, even if you accept their base premises, their conclusions about the actions you should take based on those base premises, they're still abusive. They're still dominating. They still show how this person thinks and orients to the world and other people. So, really good example. And let me back it up. If you do not use this in a conversation with an abuser. This is for you in your own mind to help you shore up your internal mental and emotional defenses against this person. And I used to do this as a kid where I would have the argument in my mind against my dad, but I wouldn't explicitly say those things because I knew that if I said them, he would beat me harder. And so a lot of abusers do end up doing this, where if you are effectively arguing against them and they're losing, they often will turn to physical retaliation, because if they can't logic you into submission or emotion you into submission, if they can't feel like they're right and you're wrong, then they often are feeling kind of like intellectually impotent, and so they lash out at the victim. So this is not, you are not having a debate with an abuser. Do not do it. It only puts you further at risk, and they're going to come up with some more abuse shenanigans. Like, this is not anything that most people should be doing. Okay, so you're having the argument in your mind, and what you do is you assume they're correct to see how wrong they are. This actually has an actual name. I didn't know that I didn't know this at one point, but I discovered it's called the steelmanning technique. So instead of straw manning, where you create a false version of the person and or their argument, you grant their argument and you create a steel man who is essentially solid and protected, and you've granted the premises of their argument, and then you destroy them. Okay, so a really good example of this is in the comments, and thank you to the person who brought this up because this is such a perfect example. She stated that she had had multiple exes who had said that she had a mental illness, and therefore, she was bad or wrong about XYZ thing. And I said, okay, let's assume they're true just to see how wrong they are. I am not in a position, I'm a lady on the internet, I have no idea who this person is. I'm not going to I can't say one way or the other, right? But what I can do is, let's use a tool. So if you were mentally ill and all of these things they're saying are correct, then what is the healthy person's conclusion to that set of facts? The healthy person's conclusion is to not argue with the person who is mentally ill and to tell them how wrong they are, and to use the fact that they're mentally ill to make them do things that they otherwise are not wanting to do, right? Because a normal person is not interested in dominating others, even if they're right. Okay? So you see what I mean about how that dominance orientation shows up, even if you grant them their argument. And again, we're not saying they're right. What we're doing is we're running a thought experiment. If you are right, then what does that mean? So it doesn't mean that you agree with it. It just means that you're granting their terms in a hypothetical thought experiment. Another thing, if someone has a mental illness, it does not automatically follow that they're abusive or a harmful person. So already that base premise, like if you believe this person to be a mentally ill person, making that logic jump to, oh, this is a person who's a dangerous person, not necessarily a reasonable logic jump to make depending on what mental illness they think this person has. Additionally, you could make the argument that, oh, this is a mentally ill person and therefore a vulnerable person and therefore somebody with a fragile, let's say, state of mind, and you are using this against this vulnerable person to achieve your own ends, right? Still abusive. So a healthy So let's just compare contrast with what a healthy person would do. If I am dealing with somebody and I recognize, oh, you have, okay, there's mental illness present here. Number one, I'm going to have compassion. Even if they're harming me, I'm going to have compassion because it is hard to think your way out of a mental illness. It is hard to orient toward reality. I have two parents with mental illnesses. So even though they're dangerous and abusive, I don't hate them. And I'm not trying to power over them and control them. What I do is I recognize, oh, okay, this is like dealing with a venomous snake. It's not the snake is the way that the snake is. It's not my responsibility to try and make either of my parents do anything. Now, if they're a danger to me or to others, then yes, it would be important to take those steps. So if they're a danger to me, I remove myself from the situation and remove their ability to harm me. If they're a danger to others, I might have to get like a third party involved, like police or mental health services. But it doesn't mean that I want to power over and control them and make them do anything, because a healthy person's not oriented toward dominating other people. So a healthy person is just more likely to step back. That's why, for example, if you're a victim of abuse and you are very vulnerable in terms of dealing with other people, and maybe you have some like abandonment trauma, and so you like cling really hard to people, and the healthy people just sort of like back up, but the unhealthy people and abusers, they latch on to you. That's why. Because healthy people aren't interested, even in a helpful way. They're not interested in dominating others. So they're naturally going to give you some distance because of the bad boundaries. Anyway, so a perfect example of this. Okay, I had an argument with a guy over the past couple of days, and it ended up in a crazy place where he tried to curse me through the internet. So I'm going to back it up. I was on a homesteading kind of video where the lady was talking about canning, and she was talking about botulism and how deadly it is and how people aren't really familiar with it anymore because nobody really does at-home canning the way that everyone used to. It's not a part of our culture in the same way. And that this particular thing is so deadly because you can't smell it, you can't taste it. So you could have a can that's compromised and have no idea. So she's trying to do essentially a PSA, and many of the people in the comments were like, oh my gosh, absolutely, these regulations were written in blood. This is why I'm so careful with canning, or this is why I don't do canning. You know, just sort of your plethora of responses. And then there's this one dude who's like, y'all are a bunch of scared people who don't seem to realize that these incidences are rare, and all you have to do is put in some acid so that you have a pH of 4.5. I'm not saying that. I'm just vaguely remembering what he said. And so I was like, isn't it possible that the incidences are rare because people are being cautious towards a valid concern? And he ripped back with yet another condescending response. Basically indicating, well, I guess all y'all are ready for the zombie apocalypse. And at this point, I'm like, okay, buddy. So I do my little response about something along the lines of maybe of risk mitigation. And he defaulted to an appeal to an authority about, he's got science degrees. And I said, oh, okay, so in with these science degrees, did you not learn about risk mitigation for dealing with hazardous materials? And anyway, the further the conversation went, the more unhinged this dude got. And also, so at some point I'm like, what is with this guy? And so I go and I look at his profile, and friends, he's a magician, like magic. Like that's what he does for his job. He goes on the internet and he does like readings for people and apparently curses as well. And I was like, and so one of the responses he gave was, he said, correlation is not causation, which is a lot of these science dudes that love to intellectually power over women so that they can feel superior about themselves. They freaking love that phrase. And I was like, oh, buddy, I'm ready for you. And I said, I was like, well, considering that you are a practitioner of magic, I find it fascinating that you would say correlation is not causation, because that is literally the underpinning of your belief structure. Oh my gosh. And then we went into the mess. So as he gets to the point where he's trying to curse me, and he's trying to get me to agree that he has cursed me. He also said that he was a mirror and that I was seeing my own rotten soul. And then he also made comments about how I was tired and exhausted by the whole thing. And I'm reading this and laughing, because what this guy doesn't know is that I'm a paralegal. I live for this shit. I was the paralegal who was in the office on a Friday afternoon, like 5 o'clock or 5:30 time, because like on a Friday before a holiday weekend, because I was like, I'm standing on business. We're not getting discovery in on a Friday afternoon before a 3 or 4 day weekend that we aren't able to respond to because we didn't know it came in, and then we lost 4 days of discovery preparation time. So I lock in. My ADHD locks in for this. This is okay, but like if you get my attention for an argument, you have got my attention, and I'm in it, and I'm refreshing. Like I'm here for this shit. And again, most people shouldn't. Like this should not be you. I happen to have years of training, and I also have like my own inner orientation background of experiences that allows me to do this. No one else should do this. You should not have a mind oriented this way. I just happen to have that. So as he's like attempting to get me to agree that he's cursed me, I assume he's right to see how wrong he is. And I said, it's interesting that you're attempting to curse me, because hypothetically speaking, let's say it's correct and you have cursed me. Then under the rule of 3, wouldn't that curse rebound on you 3 times? When I tell you this man deleted the comments, deleted his account, and disappeared off the internet. Because I was like, wait a minute, what? And I was like, oh, I won. And one of the reasons why is because I can create a framework in my mind, run a thought experiment, and say, okay, let's grant, hypothetically speaking, that his base premise is correct, that he is in fact a magician who has cursed me, which is not true. But for the thought experiment, I'm thinking that. So then where does that take us? You've still demonstrated that you are interested in dominating other people, and that you are trying to control another person, that you are punishing another person for disagreeing with you and for doing it correctly because you're losing a debate on the internet about canning, one that you started by standing on scientific principles. Right? And then so everything that he's doing throughout the entire argument is essentially projection. So when I'm in these kinds of debates, I don't take it personally, because it has like at one point he was like, you have no support and no friends. This is the only thing you have. And I'm at my son's basketball game, and they're winning. We went out to the victory dinner, but like, I'm locked in, buddy. I'm gonna refresh this. Like, I'm here. You have my attention. You are welcome. You're not gonna enjoy this. So now if I were a sad person at home who has no friends or things that I'm doing, that could get me. And the thing is, you just have to remember that they're taking shots, and they don't know. They don't know what you're actually thinking. They don't know who you actually are. And I don't mean in the internet, in an internet discussion. Most people shouldn't be having these discussions online. I'm talking about with the abuser. The abuser is thinking that they know who you are. The abuser is thinking that they know what you think. You have to understand that in their mind, they've created that straw man. They've created that voodoo doll of who they're saying you are, and then they're attacking that doll to hurt you. And the thing is, so as long as you realize, like speaking in terms of magical thinking, by the way, as long as you realize this isn't me, this has nothing to do with me. Even if something kind of looks like me. This is who they're saying I am. They're trying to make me agree that this doll is me, and therefore they can hurt this doll any way they want to, and it will actually hurt me. No, no, no. They've created a voodoo doll. You don't have to agree with that. If something even looks remotely like it's accurate, what you do is you recognize this is not a reliable narrator, and anything they use that's accurate is still a distortion of reality and is only intended to dominate me, right? Again, because a healthy person is not interested in dominating and making you do a thing. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.